30 of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. My name is Amanda Lobo. I am the Chief of Staff here at Thoughtium, and I'm very excited to be joined here today with a very special guest, which I'm going to get to here in just one second. I want to first say thank you to all of our viewers across all social media platforms. We're committed to being here live every Thursday at 3 p.m., so we love when you tune in with us. Today, we've got, like I said, a very special guest. You might notice that last name, Kevin Lobo. Kevin is my brother-in-law, and he is the managing director at Analytics 8. This is Kevin's second time at the roundtable with us, and I am excited to welcome him in. So, Kevin, welcome back to the roundtable. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well.
All right. All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. We were joking before Kevin and I hit live. Sometimes we'll be on LinkedIn commenting on each other's content, and there's been some confusion about me being his wife or his like cousin or whoever. So to clear the air, Kevin is my brother-in-law. He's the best brother-in-law ever. So welcome back, Kevin.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah. So the last time you were here was episode 73, which was a hot second ago. It was season 3. What is new in your life since episode 73 when you were here last?
Quite a bit. At least from the perspective of Analytics 8, we've grown pretty significantly. I think the last time I joined you guys, we were probably a little bit under 100 in headcount. We're at around 200 today. So things have definitely progressed pretty quickly since the last time we spoke and met. Just staying really busy with expansion into Europe. We actually just opened up an office in Bulgaria at the start of this year. So a lot of exciting new things happening at Analytics 8. A lot of exciting new things happening personally. Bought a house. We had our second baby. So yeah, definitely staying busy.
Yeah, I love it. Rosalie turned 1 yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Yeah, very good. Very good. And for those who maybe didn't see your original episode, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your role at Analytics 8 and what you guys do over there?
Yeah, so I'm managing director at Analytics 8. I lead our analytics service line. So basically, any of the service work that we do related to dashboards or enterprise reporting, advanced analytics or visualization falls under my service line. So I've been with the firm for a little over 8 years. I've been working in data analytics for going on 12 plus years now. Analytics 8 is a data analytics consultancy. We're headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. We have offices across the U.S., Raleigh, Madison, Dallas, and then obviously a very big remote workforce. So we primarily work in data strategy, data management, and analytics as our primary services. We've been around for 18 plus years now. And yeah, it's been quite the journey being part of the firm and just kind of seeing it grow over time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk through our topic today, which is, strategies for career growth, because I think if I remember correctly, in the last 8 years, you went from a staff consultant to a managing director.
Yeah.
That you won't say this, but I will on your behalf. That's some pretty incredible career growth in a pretty short amount of time. And so I'm really excited to have you speaking to kind of what your personal strategies have been to achieve that growth. Because even since I met you, which was just 3 years ago, you've had just a really kind of incredible leap in your trajectory. So I know we talked about 3 very, very clear strategies that you attribute to kind of that growth in your career. So we can maybe just start diving into those. And I love these because they're not your standard kind of boilerplate, I don't even know, your cheesy ones. I think these are some really, really great and thoughtful ways that people can think about their own career. So do you want to dive in? You want me to share the first one, or you want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, I can dive in. I think one of the most important things in my career progression that I honestly kind of took for granted until the last few years was finding a working style that worked best for me. So I think early on in my career, or just in general for anybody, when you're kind of coming out of school or coming out of college, you're basically just trying to figure out how to work your job, period. You have no frame of reference really. So a lot of those early years are just basically spent modeling the behavior of other people that you see in the workplace. So in some cases, this is going to be a really good thing if you have strong mentors or coworkers, but Other times you might kind of find a complete misalignment. So a good example, when I think back to this, is just basically early in my career, a spot that I worked at previous to Analytics 8, the culture was really centered around working like a lot of hours, just kind of hustle and grind culture. And, I definitely get it. It's consulting. There are going to be situations where you work long hours in consulting, but it was kind of clear to me that the amount of time that I was kind of putting in, like the absolutely insane amount of hours that I was working, wasn't actually bearing any real good results or better results, I guess. So basically, there's just a ton of redundancy, needless revisions in the things that I was doing, and kind of a widespread case of diminishing returns. When I look back on it, so it was just basically the first time in my career that I guess quality over quantity kind of idea started to take root, and I really started thinking critically about, how should I individually be approaching my work versus just doing what everybody else around me was doing.
Totally. I really struggle with, like, if I can't be authentic to myself, I do not show up well. And it sounds like this is kind of, the point of your tip. It's like, if you're trying to just do what everyone else is doing, or trying to kind of fit the mold of maybe like your employer, like top down kind of like culture values or whatever, it might not work for you. And I've definitely experienced this in my career too. Like, I feel like I'm in a place now where I'm driving with such a different level of confidence, because I know what I bring to the table. I know what I don't. And I'm okay with what I don't. Like, we've got other smart people here that can, step in those areas, but being super authentic to myself, I think is super important, and not saying, oh, this is how someone else does it, so I have to do it that way, and just leaning into like my work style.
Yeah. I think one thing that I kind of found like over time was just that I'm really adept at just seizing an idea and moving quickly on it. Like, I don't like to linger or give myself too much room to overthink. So if I don't move fast, I just lose the thread really quickly. So working fast just ends up being my default mode. So I think it takes time to kind of figure out what works best for you as an individual. And the culture of the place that you work at is definitely going to factor into it. I'm really lucky to be at Analytics 8. I've been given a lot of runway to kind of have the working style that works best for me kind of take shape and be encouraged by my mentors and coworkers. But I think kind of shifting gears from just simply modeling behavior of those kind of around you and finding your individual style or mode of work that works best for you, like, that's a really critical step in terms of your career progression.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. How much of that runway that you think you've been given has been due to solid leadership at Analytics 8, or them seeing that if you just like lean into your own individual work style, that you'll go and produce?
It's a combination of both, honestly. So I've been really lucky to have very good bosses at Analytics 8 that they kind of approach problems differently, but they kind of let their people run with good ideas. And they give us the opportunity to kind of bring something to fruition and fail really fast if needed. And I've appreciated that so much in my time here. And it's definitely top down. I started as a staff consultant. So it's funny, like, a lot of my peers and leadership were people that when I came on board, I was like, I can't imagine having a conversation with them, I'm working with them side by side. So it's super funny, but I appreciate just basically the runway and support that I've been given to just kind of be able to just find my style and find my lane. And it's super important. I think kind of the second point that we wanted to talk about today, that's directly derived from our CEO, Dave Fussakin. So he was actually the one who brought this point up to me, which honestly really resonated with me at the time. And I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he was basically saying that, address your weaknesses where you can truly effectuate change, but recognize that it's basically better to lean into your core strengths that make you great. So basically, don't try and reinvent yourself where it doesn't work for you. And I really appreciated that. And that's something that I've kind of taken to heart.
Yeah, totally. I actually got this advice in my career as well. One of my bosses, his name was Greg. Shout out, Greg, if you're watching. He said, don't try to make your weaknesses your strength. Try to make your weaknesses neutral and lean into your strengths, because your strengths other people don't have your strengths. And so, in trying to turn your weaknesses into something you're really good at, often it's going to be a miss. So try to make them neutral and then just really lean into what you're actually good at.
Yeah, and I'm like just as guilty as anybody else is like looking at a peer and being like, why can't I do it like they can? Or like, why can't I think like they can or approach like X, Y, and Z, the way that
But they're looking at you doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important just to not, kind of persistently dwell on your shortcomings and just kind of focus on what makes you unique or just really great at what you do. When I think about it, like one really good example is like, I am an awful like blue sky, big picture ideation like session kind of guy. Like the most creative way to like assassinate or murder me would be to like schedule like a 3-hour whiteboard session where like the agenda is like, let's dream up a blue sky list of like all the things we could do. Like cannot handle it. And I recognize the importance of thinking that way, right? Like it's not lost on me. Like the seeds of lots of good ideas come from sessions like that. Sure. But like that is just not how I'm hardwired. Like where my strength lies is basically taking that seed of an idea from an ideation session and just executing on it to death.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I am good at.
So what we call that over here, we have our artists and we have our operators. And our co-founders over here, Anthony and Norm. Anthony would be our artist, and Norm is our operator. And I run alongside Norm in the operations space. But like when he has a big idea or a big vision, like we execute it. Right. And so I think a lot of people can play a little bit in both space, but usually people have like a really strong orientation to one or the other. And it sounds like you're more of the operator as well. So I can totally appreciate that because I'm with you. I don't know. I'm not like the big vision, like dream it up, but like I'll execute the shit out of it if you put it in front of me.
Yeah. And the funny part is I didn't recognize that as a strength for the longest time. Like I think back to early in my career, I was in like a 3-hour ideation session that our boss brought all of us into on our team. Basically, the entire agenda was centered around, let's talk about every single piece of feature functionality that we could possibly build into our software product. And I remember just sitting there feeling so deeply uncomfortable because everything that we were listing out, I was like, this isn't something that I can just readily grasp and start working on immediately. And I remember walking away from that being like, is there something wrong with me? Like, I didn't feel like I contributed a whole lot to it. And again, when I look back on that now with like the benefit of hindsight and experience, it's just because there wasn't really anything readily there for me to just kind of run with. And that's how I'm hardwired. Like, that's what my strength is. So when I encounter stuff like that today, I really rely on my teammates. Like my teammates are better at doing that than I am. Like that is their strength. It's not necessarily a strength for me, but what I can do is basically work with them on that idea and just execute on it. So that's basically what I lean into today.
Yeah. Well, and both have to be true in any business. Like there has to be people, like everyone can't be an artist or a visionary or a strategic thinker, and everybody can't be an executor. You need like the duality. You need both of those to have a really healthy organization. So I don't know, maybe it's stage of career because we're the exact same age. Like I definitely am finding myself less self-conscious about the stuff that I'm not great at and more just comfortable with it and knowing like I bring a set of skills to the table that is important and it might look different than the other person, that I can learn from these individuals. But like if we all stay in our lanes, something better is probably going to come out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just basically all about finding your style, all about finding your strengths and just trying to maximize that.
Totally. I love that. Okay, so that was 1 and 2. Hit me with number 3.
So number 3 is a little bit more focused on kind of the concept of cross-functional collaboration. So basically taking the time to build relationships and trust and goodwill with your team and just basically the organization at large, that counts for a lot in terms of career progression. So, I mean, the simple reality is people are going to be more inclined to want to work with you if there's an actual genuine rapport that exists.
Totally.
So kind of what I've found is, being factional, being territorial, adopting kind of a mentality of like, that's not my problem in an organization. That's just basically the quickest way to kind of wall you off and more or less just stunt your career development.
Nothing sets me off more than when someone says like, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge trigger phrase. I guess probably because I've always been in startups where everybody is wearing lots of hats and like really takes like the whole village to make it go. But I cannot stand that mentality. I guess I've always worked with leaders that have been very willing to like roll up their sleeves and be in it. And so that's the model I know, and is the model I've kind of adhered to. But oh man, that saying like gets me.
Yeah, I mean, in the position that I work in Analytics 8, I mean, I'm literally working with every single department of the firm. Like on a day-to-day basis, I'm working with consulting, I'm working with finance, I'm working with marketing, I'm working with the people office, I'm working with the growth team, I'm working with my team.
Yeah.
And I'm not always going to see eye to eye with them. I'm going to have disagreements with them. But I recognize the importance of working together with them because their success is ultimately going to be my success and vice versa. I mean, I think that's just super important to kind of be able to build those bridges across teams in order to be functional.
Yeah. And that healthy friction is kind of critical and necessary to a healthy organization. You know, like your sales department should be kind of add ends with your marketing department and, you know, and whatnot. Like there should be, as long as it's healthy friction, you know, there kind of should be, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think being a jerk can get you pretty far. I think there's enough of a documented history of not so good people being placed in positions of power. But from my standpoint, like there is always a bill to pay with that type of behavior. And I think focusing on being a strong bridge builder, like those are the type of people that are going to be an engine for an organization.
I couldn't agree more. And that has, I think you've got the receipts to show that that's true, right? I love it. Okay, so let's recap these. So for the first top three being one, finding a work style that suits you best, addressing your weakness, not making your weakness as your strength, really just leaning into your strengths. And then the third being building those relationships. You also posted something on your LinkedIn, like I think today, about when you got promoted into this managing director role. I like read this. I was like, oh, this is right in line with what we're going to talk about today. And you say on here, I was really excited for about 24 hours. And then I had the, oh shit moment of I gotta like a step up, basically. Like everything just got harder. Talk a little bit, maybe share a little bit more about that post. And I think it's relevant here for the group.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of that kind of came, honestly, from a conversation that I had with a colleague 2 weeks ago. We were kind of talking about that, you know, like stepping into new roles and just how disorienting that can be. So, I mean, I think it's really important, especially if you're the upwardly mobile type, to kind of take the time to recognize that the role that you're aiming to step into is going to be a different beast than what you previously knew. Because I think people can be really focused on getting up to the next rung of the ladder that kind of ironically enough, they're not actually thinking about how they plan on approaching that new role itself. Because as you layer on more responsibility, it's going to force you to approach your day-to-day in your career differently.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really important to kind of take the time to assess what that next step is going to look like how you're going to have to think differently, how you're going to have to approach that role. Because sometimes like the gravitation is just so much so like, I just want to get to that position that I'm not really thinking about how is that going to like actually manifest and take shape? Like, what am I going to do differently?
Yeah. What does it actually take to be successful in that role? Yeah.
And like that was, it's always kind of been, as I've moved up in my career, like literally every single time I've ever gotten a promotion, I will basically give myself 24 hours where I'll be like, great job, Kevin, way to go. You know, and then it's just like, okay, like, what do I need to do? Because it's going to be different. And it's just kind of a matter of just being very deliberate about like, okay, like what are the next steps that I have to do in this new role? And like, how is that going to be different than how I operated previously?
Yeah. That's like a critical, I think, fourth one. Because I think you're right. I think a lot of people, high achievers, a lot of people that would be tuning into this episode or watching the replay were results and achievement driven. We're growth driven individuals. We've got a lot of leaders, a lot of small business owners here. and you don't, you just think about getting to the next phase, and then you find yourself like the trajectory kind of goes like this, because you're like, crap, I didn't think about what it would actually take to do this at a high level, because the bar has just been risen, you know?
Yeah, or like how the role might manifest itself differently than what you expected it to be.
Oh, that's a good point too.
Like all of those things kind of need to have a little bit of thought behind it, you know, when you're stepping into it. And I think going through kind of stepping into that service line MD role initially to start, I mean, there was no such thing as a service line at Analytics 8 at that point. So it's just basically like, okay, like I need to figure out how to build like a business within the business. Just, you know, it requires a totally different set of thinking than what I was previously doing, which was deploying solutions from my customers and managing my team that was reporting into me. Like totally different. So had to be very, very deliberate about like, how am I going to approach this in a much different way? Because I can't rely on the same things that I've been doing day after day in my previous role.
What does that process look like for you? You've closed your 24-hour window of celebrating and you are going into like, okay, now what does it take? Do you have a specific approach or process to how you step in?
Yeah, it's basically kind of one, I'll like document out and just make a list for myself internally. It's not something that I'm like sharing with anybody other than myself. It's just for me to get my thoughts on it. It's basically kind of split up into what are the tactical things that I know I need to do in the short term to just kind of get like the scaffolding up, like the systems and processes for my role, and what are kind of the 2 or 3 key long-term objectives that I want to work towards, and what's the deadline that I'm setting for myself to get it done, and like what do I need from the rest of the organization in order to achieve it. So just basically kind of bucketing into like the short term and like the mid to long term strategic objectives, and being able to delineate between those two. Because I remember, it's funny, I do this at the end of every year, where it's basically I'll write out like a recap of how the year progressed, and then basically kind of map out what my plan is going to be. And it's so funny going back and looking at those, because I keep all of them. I've kept all of them for like the last several years. But I always kind of follow that same mode where it's like, okay, like let's frame how I actually did last year, and just basically translate like what can I do more to move the needle moving into the next year. I think it's a really good method just to kind of at least frame in that point in time, like what did you do over the course of like 2022, and what are you going to do in 2023? It's kind of like the big higher level goals and like the low hanging fruit that, you know, you can kind of knock out in the first couple of months, and like giving yourself the room to pivot and evolve. You know, I think that's the other aspect of kind of moving up is objectives change quickly. Like things change quickly, and you have to have the ability to kind of pivot fast, especially in consulting, especially working in tech. You know, I feel like a lot of that can happen very fast. So just giving yourself the room to breathe and evolve.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I guess the one thing I'm really taking from all of your tips is just and this kind of bonus tip that you provided as well is there's a real sense of intentionality around it. Like you have not fallen into like a wonderful career path by chance. Like, oh, Kevin was in the right place at the right time. You've been obscenely intentional about how you show up for your employer. And it's proven to be very successful for you. So I think that's like the one thing I'm taking away is being very, very intentional about your path and how you step in.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just always kind of just a chain of dependency in my head. Like, all right, like these are the things that I need to do in order to effectively kind of move up. And when I move up, like these are the things that I'm going to have to continue to work on. You know, it just doesn't necessarily end when you get to the next step. There's always still some sort of progression. There's always something that you can kind of build upon.
What I love too is like nowhere in this conversation today have you said, well, I looked at my manager or my boss and I said, how can I get promoted? Like you're, you know, like you've really demonstrated, which I think is so key, especially when
you gotta prove it. Like you have to put in the work. Like there's I think you have to have the body of evidence behind it, and you have to show the thought process. And I do really firmly believe that good people who do good work will ultimately be rewarded in the end.
Totally.
And I think, I've always kind of tried to build the body in justification,
Yeah.
tried to effectively work with others in my team and others across the organization. I want to make their job easier too, where I possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really good stuff, Kevin. I appreciate just your insights here. I think there's some really good nuggets here that leaders or small business owners can really take, very even tactically just to their own kind of career trajectory. So I appreciate your thoughts here. I would love to end on a rapid fire.
Okay, let's see what
you're not prepared. Okay, you ready?
Prepared. All right, let's do
it. What is an ordinary moment in your life that brings you great joy?
Going for a run early in the morning.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, we're running a half together here in a couple months.
Yeah.
Love it. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
Travel to the past.
What moment would you go to?
Oh, that's kind of hard. Oh man. I don't know, actually. Probably like a old family party, like like the Lobo family, like basement Christmas parties, something.
Well, take me with you because I never got to experience one of those. So for our viewers, Kevin and my husband Eric's family, their parents were the first to come to America in the 70s, and they sponsored basically their whole family to come over. And so I think they felt like a great responsibility to just like take care of their family. And so Ron and Marilyn, I think Marilyn might be tuned in right now. Hi, Marilyn. They're just incredible hosts. Ron was a chef. Marilyn is an incredible cook and host. And they're just they would throw these massive holiday parties and just get-togethers all the time. And I hear about them all the time. They do the Christmas carols, they do all the things. And I never got to go to one because when I met Eric, it was in the pandemic, and it just hasn't quite resurrected. So every year we've tried to do one, like a new variant comes out and we end up not being able to have it. Something happens. Yeah. So man, if you ever are granted that time travel, please take me with you.
I'll take you. Don't worry.
Okay. Good stuff. Let's do a couple more. This is a good one. Describe your style in 1 to 2 words.
If anybody at Analytics 8's watching, they're going to laugh at me. Ruthlessly efficient.
Oh, okay. I like that.
There's a whole backstory behind it. It used to be part of our corporate messaging at Analytics 8, and we officially retired it, I think as of like a year or two ago.
I love it. I assume it wasn't in your corporate handbook about your clothing, though.
It was that, but I tend to get a lot of comments on my sweater game.
I like it. It's like grandpa swag.
Yeah. It's the Big Lebowski sweater.
Yeah, I like it. All right, last one. This is my favorite question to ask people. I don't think I've ever asked you this. So, about something you admire about yourself, and I want you to fill in the blank. If the world were more like me, it would be.
Oh man. Kinder? I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say for you. I was gonna say kind.
Oh boy! If my brother's watching this, he's gonna be making fun of me.
No, I think he would totally agree. And I would agree for sure. So, Kevin, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for coming to the table with me today. So many great nuggets here. Just appreciate your wisdom. And yeah, we'll see you soon. We'll get you back here soon.
Thank you for having me. Awesome. It's good talking with you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode 130. Today officially ends season 4 of Navigating Now, which is just wild to think back that we've been here for over 130 episodes at this point. So we will be back next week, kicking off season 5. We have an incredible lineup ready to go. So we will see you then every Thursday.